Hi everyone, I'm here today with Bianca King. She's a mindfulness teacher living in Geneva, and she will tell us all about mindfulness and how you can use it in your everyday life. Hi Bianca, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. It's very nice to finally meet you.
Can you tell us about mindfulness? What does it mean and how can people use it in their everyday life?
Mindfulness is very much just about being present in this very moment. So, for instance, it's noticing what you're experiencing right now. So, just noticing where are your thoughts right now, and how does your body feel right now, and emotionally, what's going on. And this can be very special connection with ourselves to help us to move forward in life in ways that are more conscious rather than just unconsciously moving through the rotation of life.
What about someone who works and who is very busy, or a mother who has three children and she doesn't have time to meditate every morning or every evening? How can she incorporate mindfulness in her life?
It's a good question, actually, because we're often very busy in our lives, and meditation is often seen as something where you have to go away somewhere quiet and have time for yourself, and we don't always have time for ourselves. So often what people talk about is a formal practice of mindfulness, where you might sit in a certain way or go somewhere to meditate. And then there's also informal practices of meditation where it's really just about being present with what you're already doing. I have a good example of what you spoke about, of somebody who has children. Somebody who was on a course of mine had 5 children. Her husband and her were both on the course, and as she was practicing, she said that something somewhat changed for her after a few weeks, and she was still busy. She was still running after her children, but what she noticed was that she was more present with the running, and that made her less anxious about it because there was less of a judgment. So with mindfulness, and if we understand what mindfulness means, it's about not judging ourselves, it's about just experiencing it. So one of the main components of meditation or mindfulness is the aspect of compassion, and really having a sense of coming to ourselves with a befriending of each experience rather than a fear of the experience.
How often should one practice mindfulness? I understand that you can or you should practice it all the time because otherwise it doesn't work. It's actually changing your perception of life, because if you're mindful all the time, you won't get annoyed or angry. Your emotions won't have power over you. And how can you achieve that? I mean, like, how can you become like a Buddha?
It's a very good question, and often one of the things that people feel is that to meditate, that we have to be Buddha-like in some way. And in fact, I think that can be a little bit of a very high expectation to be Buddha-like all the time. But how I see meditation is perhaps just becoming more of who we are. And it might be a person who's very highly excited, or a person who's very, calm and zen in a way. And I don't see either way you can be mindful with either of these ways of your personality. An example is, a friend told me recently that when she was very young, and she's in her 70s now, and when she was very young, her mother felt that she was too ADHD, I guess you could say. She was very overexcited and had so much energy, and she took her daughter to the doctor to see what was wrong. And the doctor said, well, the thing that's wrong is that her soul is too big for her body. And so her body was just too small for her soul, so her body was always moving around. So I think this reminds me a lot of mindfulness, in the sense of just trying to really embrace who we are, rather than trying to be something else, and really befriending that and loving that in some way.
Bianca, my next question is, how can I be mindful when my daughter is screaming? That's the first thing. She's now nearly 2 years old, and she's already in her no phase, and she throws a lot of tantrums. how can I be mindful when I'm in that situation, for example, with my child? For someone, it can be with their partner or at work with their boss or with their colleague.
It's a really good question, and it's one that I wish I had all the answers to, because I have these times of feeling very, very strong emotions and confusion about how to really express them in a way that's not harmful. And one of the things I guess I could say is more of a questioning, which is about looking inside and just investigating that emotion itself and noticing where does that come from? Where does that emotion of frustration or irritation? And with mindfulness, what we generally try to do, and I'm sure you're trying to do as it arises and your child is screaming or saying no, is befriending that emotion, because of course it feels frustrating, and that why not feel irritated? Sometimes more the issue can come from our feeling that we shouldn't be feeling frustrated or irritated, but in fact emotions are such powerful messengers for what's happening in our lives and how things feel good or bad. So yeah, I would probably just come to the body and come to the heart and just investigate and bring some friendliness to those emotions of not necessarily trying to push them away, but just understanding them more.
If someone is bullying others, I feel that if I'm nice to that person, even if they're not bullying me, I'm enabling that behavior. At the same time, my friends are telling me, but that means that you yourself are getting involved in that emotionally, and you should not, you should let go. Is there some advice that you can give me?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting question, and I think it's something that we experience around us quite often. So I think it speaks to my heart as well. And something that comes to mind as you're speaking is something that is often talked about, especially with the teacher Pema Chodron, if you've heard of her. And she talks about fierce compassion. And this fierce compassion is a place of where we really see the pain in another person who's perhaps causing pain to others, but that doesn't mean that we don't speak our truth. And what I heard from what you were saying about the sense of confusion and the sense of emotions that come up when perhaps coming in contact with this person, or people who are being bullied by this person, I think this is a good space to touch into those and also act from a space of truth. And that can often be the most uncomfortable thing. But also I find that when I hold in my emotions, or I hold in what seems my truth, it's painful inside to be around these people. It's painful for me myself. So it's actually causing more pain. So speaking our truth, which might mean being fiercely compassionate to another person, which doesn't mean often being very nice and polite in the ways that we might think when we are Zen, but it's also about being true to our heart and being present with what's not feeling okay.
There is one thing that I've been thinking of since September last year. Actually, I was talking with one of my friends, and I told her that I did many retreats in my life. Since I was 20, so it means like 20 years probably that, not probably, I will be 40 this year. So it is 20 years that I've been meditating, practicing different practices. And I'm still not enlightened. Maybe this will not happen in this life. Can you give me some advice?
I love it. That's great. I'm not sure if I can speak from a place of being enlightened, so I don't have the answer. And it brings up the question, what is enlightenment actually? And how do we achieve that? And even, do we want to achieve it? I remember I went through, most of my meditation hasn't been with this feeling of wanting to achieve enlightenment until I went on a particular retreat once, and there was a lot of talk about enlightenment, and then it suddenly became this thing like, oh, actually maybe I want to have an enlightenment, because wouldn't it be nice not to have all of this suffering in life and not be bothered about things? And in that, then there was the teaching of having a goal to enlightenment, and the moment that we have the goal of wanting to have it is the moment that we lose the grasp of it. And so, I mean, I play with that in my life, and I've been finding that for myself, that enlightenment has been something that I feel like I get just little sporadic moments of. For me, I don't feel it's an ongoing experience that I have 24/7. But in the moments where I feel present, which is really just about being mindful, and I feel like this, there's this really just sinking into life. And even with, for instance, the weather that we have now, which feels very cold, but also very beautiful. And I was in Thailand just a few weeks ago, and I came back here, and it was the bees was happening, and it was this instant shock. And the comparing mind came in of, oh, I think I'd rather be in Koh Samui, where it's very nice and warm. And then my comparing mind began to really continuously judge where we are now. And when I actually sink into it and I feel the breeze on my face or the sharp wind on my face, there's nothing actually really negative about it. It's just wind. And in fact, it makes me feel more alive. And the beautiful colors of the gray. Somebody said in a retreat once that they felt like Lake Geneva was 50 shades of gray. And, you know, in the winter once you arrive here. So there's so much beauty even in that. And I feel enlightenment is somewhat just this sinking into just experiencing it rather than judging it. And I feel like I sometimes get these glimpses of it. It's not a constant. I still would prefer to be in warmer weather most of the year round. But yeah, I feel like it might be a question about what is enlightenment to us, and is having enlightenment about trying to avoid something that's going on in our lives. Okay, so I'm very happy to guide for you a short meditation that you're welcome to use in times of transit or in times of just being by yourself. And as we begin, I invite you just to sit comfortably as you are, wherever you are. And I invite you to close your eyes if that feels comfortable for you. You're also welcome to have your eyes open. And usually if you have your eyes open, just gazing a few feet ahead of you on the floor is a good start. I'm going to close my eyes while I guide you. And so I invite you, as you're sitting, is just to notice whatever's going on for you, just noticing if the mind feels busy or if the mind feels quite perhaps slow or even just neutral. And no judgment about whether the mind feels busy or the types of thoughts that might be coming and going, just simply noticing. And then just gently aware of the sounds that you hear around you. So noticing different tones and volumes, and once again, no judgment about what they are or trying to analyze what they are. Noticing what it's like just to simply hear. And then gently just bringing awareness to the body and noticing however it is that you're seated. Noticing if you can feel your back against a chair or your bottom on the seat. And if you do, how does that actually feel? Is there a sense of warmth or a sense of pressure, or perhaps it's just numbness, which is fine as well. And aware of the weight of the body, just aware of wherever you're seated, the weight of your body is being held by that chair. Aware of your feet and noticing perhaps they're in contact with the ground, and just wiggling your toes a little bit and feeling the sensations of wiggling the toes, and perhaps they feel cool or moist or warm or tingly. Notice if you can feel the big toes. And then just gradually bringing awareness from the feet to the legs, and aware of how the legs are placed and how they feel, and just aware of your torso and your spine, and if you like, just gently elongating your spine a little bit so it's sometimes like pulling the string from the top of your head so that your head lifts a little bit. And there's a little bit of spaciousness between the head and the shoulders. And the posture is just a little bit more wakeful. And taking a deep breath in, if you like, and feeling the movement of air as it travels in through the nose or the mouth and comes down toward the chest and pushes the diaphragm. You're welcome to bring one hand to the chest and one hand to the belly if you like, just to really touch in with those sensations of movement as you breathe in and out. And then allowing the breath just to come back to its normal pace, and it doesn't matter if it's short or long, and aware of your hands on the chest, on the belly, aware of the temperatures that you feel of the palms of the hands against your skin or the material of the clothing. And just noticing the movement, just listening to the movement of air as you breathe in, and awareness of just breathing out. Aware of the pauses in between the breath. And you're welcome to bring your hands down if you like, and if you bring your hands down, noticing if you can still feel the movement of the breath, even without your hands being there. And noticing as thoughts come and go, it's perfectly natural. We don't want the thoughts to go away. And we practice bringing our attention back to the movement that you feel. Gently expanding awareness out to the whole chest and to the torso and the arms and the legs. Aware of however it is that you're seated. Aware of the sounds that you hear around you. And aware of shapes and colors, even if the eyes are closed. And gradually, as you're ready, just starting to open the eyes if they're closed and noticing the shapes and colors around you, and also wherever your attention goes, noticing where you place your attention. And gently just taking in the spaces around you and noticing how it is to be in the space you're in. Okay.
Bianca, thank you very much for taking the time and spending it with us, and also for guiding us through this meditation. I'm sure that people can use it because it's very practical, it's short, and you don't actually need anything to do that. So, thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's always very exciting for me to share meditation, so it's a big pleasure for me. And it's very nice that you say that it's one of those things that you don't need anything for. And this is one of the things I like about meditation is no matter where you are or what you're doing, you don't have to, have a meditation cushion or anything. It's just about checking in inwards and opening outwards.